My name is Leah Moran. I'm 31 years old. 3 weeks before my father's 60th birthday party, my mother called to tell me I wasn't welcome. Not because we'd fought. Not because I'd done something wrong. Because my brother Grant said having me there would make things awkward with his fiancé's family. He told my mother I was just a cook, that Audrey's parents were old money, Vanderbilt donors, country club members, and they'd look down on a sister who worked in kitchens for a living. My mother said, "You understand, right, sweetheart? Grant's trying to make a good impression. The Harwells are very particular." I said, "I understand." I didn't tell her that the Harwells had already written me a check for $22,000 this year. I didn't tell her that Audrey herself had been emailing me every week for 4 months. I didn't tell her that in 3 weeks, at a gala 2 miles from my parents' house, 350 people would watch me walk across a stage, and my family would finally learn that the cook they were ashamed of had built something they couldn't ignore. They never asked what I was building, so they never knew. It started when I was 20. I was sitting in the living room of my parents' house in Brentwood, Tennessee, a subdivision of brick colonials and manicured lawns 20 minutes south of Nashville. The TV was on. My father was in his recliner watching the Titans game. My mother was scrolling through her phone. Grant was in the kitchen microwaving leftover pasta. I said, "I'm dropping out of Belmont. I'm enrolling at Nashville Culinary Institute." My mother looked up. My father muted the game. "Culinary school," my mother said. Not a question, a verdict. "I want to be a chef," I said. "I start in February." My father rubbed his forehead. "Leah, chefs work nights, weekends, holidays. You'll never have a normal life." My mother put her phone down. "Sarah's daughter just got accepted to the nursing program at Vanderbilt. Brandon Keller is starting law school at UT in the fall. Just other people's children, doing more respectable things." Grant came out of the kitchen with his pasta. "You're going to cook for a living? Like in a restaurant?" "I want to build something around food," I said. He shrugged. "Good luck with that." My mother touched my arm. "Honey, we just want you to be comfortable," she said, comfortable the way some people say safe. What she meant was invisible. What she meant was ordinary. What she meant was, "Don't make us explain you." I said, "This is what I want." My mother smiled. The tight one. The one that said she'd already moved on. "Well, we'll support you, sweetie." Of course. Support. I learned what that word meant over the next 11 years. It meant they showed up when it was easy and looked away when it wasn't. Every Sunday, we had dinner at my parents' house. Roast chicken, sometimes pot roast. Always the same tablecloth, always the same seats. And every Sunday, my mother asked Grant about his job. Grant worked in pharmaceutical sales for a company based in Franklin. He wore khakis and a button-down. He drove a company Lexus. He talked about quotas and regional rankings, and how close he was to the President's Club trip to Cabo. They ate it up. My father would nod, lean forward, ask follow-up questions. My mother would beam. "Grant, that's wonderful. Grant, we're so proud." Then she'd turn to me. "How's the restaurant, honey?" That's all. Not "What are you cooking?" Not "What did you learn today?" Not "Tell me about the menu you're designing." Just "How's the restaurant?" The same voice you'd use to ask someone about the weather when you don't actually care if it rains. When I graduated from culinary school at 22, my mother said, "That's great, sweetie." Then asked Grant about his first quarter numbers. When I got my first sous chef position at Blackbird Nashville, a restaurant that had a 2-month wait list, my father said, "Good for you, kiddo." My mother asked Grant if the company was still paying for his car insurance. When I left Blackbird to start my own catering company at 25, Moran and Company, registered LLC, commercial kitchen lease, liability insurance, health department certification, everything by the book, my mother said. "Just be careful, honey. The restaurant business is brutal." Then she asked Grant about his new apartment. I stopped volunteering information after year 3. I stopped waiting for them to be curious. But I kept cooking. I kept building. And by the time Grant called me just a cook, Moran and Company had catered 147 events, employed 23 people, and brought in $1.6 million in revenue last year. I personally cleared $168,000 after payroll, rent, and expenses. Grant made $74,000 selling cholesterol medication. But every Sunday, my mother asked about his quota. And every Sunday, she asked me, "How's the catering, honey?" The call came on a Wednesday evening, September 11th. I'd just gotten home from a tasting at our commercial kitchen on Dickerson Pike. My chef's coat was draped over the passenger seat, stained with pomegranate reduction and smelling like rosemary. I had flour under my nails and a burn on my wrist from a sheet pan I'd grabbed without a towel because I was moving too fast, the way I always do when I'm testing a new menu. My phone rang. "Mom, Wednesday wasn't a calling day. We talked Sundays, and even then it was brief." "Hey, Mom." "Hi, sweetheart." That voice, careful, measured, the one she used when she was about to deliver bad news wrapped in sweetness. "How are you?" "Fine. Just got home. What's up?" "So, your father's birthday." She paused. "We're planning the party for October 5th. At the house. And I need to talk to you about it." I set my keys on the counter. "Okay. Grant is bringing Audrey. This is the first time her parents are meeting us. The Harwells. And Grant's a little nervous about the impression." I waited. He was hoping maybe this year it could be more of an intimate thing. Just the immediate family and the Harwells. "Keep it small." "I'm immediate family," I said. "I know, honey. I know. But Grant feels like he wants everything to be polished, and he's worried that your job might come up, and it could be a little hard to explain to people like the Harwells." "My job?" I said. "He didn't mean it like that, sweetie. He just said Audrey's family is very traditional. Her father's on the board at Vanderbilt Medical. Her mother chairs the Belmead Garden Society. And Grant doesn't want them to think she trailed off." "Think we're what, Mom?" "Less than," she whispered. "So I embarrass him." "Leah, don't." "What did he say exactly?" She hesitated. "He said you work in kitchens. That you show up to things smelling like grease. That he doesn't want Audrey's parents to see his sister in an apron and get the wrong idea about our family." The words sat in my chest like a stone. I looked down at my hands, flour in the creases of my knuckles. The burn on my wrist already blistering. I'd been on my feet since 5 that morning. "So I'm uninvited," I said. "It's just this once. Next year." "It's fine, Mom." "Leah, I understand." And I did. "Thank you, sweetie," my mother said. The relief in her voice made my stomach turn. "We'll do something just the two of us. Maybe brunch the next weekend." "Sure," I said. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen, the one I'd renovated myself with butcher block counters and open shelving and a 6-burner wolf range I'd saved 2 years to buy. I stood there and didn't cry. I just wondered when I became the thing my family needed to hide behind a closed door. They never asked. So they never knew that while Grant talked about his sales rankings and his company car and his quarterly bonuses, I was building something real. Year 1. I launched Moran & Company in June of 2020. The worst possible time. Restaurants were closing. Events were canceled. The whole hospitality industry was on fire. I was 25. With a commercial kitchen lease I could barely afford, $3,200 a month, and a used catering van I'd bought for $26,000 from a retiring florist. White. No logo yet. I drove it home and parked it in my driveway and sat inside it for 20 minutes, hands on the wheel, thinking this is either the bravest or the stupidest thing I've ever done. I told my parents at Sunday dinner. "I started my own catering company," I said. "Moran & Company." My father looked up from his chicken. "Your own company? In this economy?" My mother smiled. "That's nice, honey. Just be careful." Grant said. "Do you even have clients?" "Not yet," I said. "Just a website and a kitchen." He nodded, already looking at his phone. "Cool." My mother turned to him. "Grant, tell us about the conference in Memphis." Year 2. By the end of year 2, I'd catered 31 events. Small ones mostly. Birthday parties, bridal showers, a retirement luncheon for a law firm in Green Hills that led to 3 more bookings. I hired my first employee. Rosa Gutierrez. She was 48, had worked in restaurant kitchens for 20 years, moved from Puebla when she was 19. She was faster on prep than anyone I'd ever seen, and her mole was transcendent. I told my parents. I hired someone, I said. Rosa. She's my prep chef and Sue's. That's wonderful, honey. My mother turned to Grant. Did you hit your sales target this quarter? Year 3. I landed my first $50,000 contract. A corporate retreat for a tech company at a resort outside of Gatlinburg. 3 days, 200 people, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, plus cocktail receptions. I was terrified. Rosa looked at me in the kitchen at 4 a.m. the day we left and said, "We've done harder things with less. Let's go." We nailed it. The CEO emailed me personally afterward. Best food we've had at any company event. Period. He referred me to 2 other companies. By the end of year 3, I had 9 employees and $480,000 in revenue. I told my parents the company was doing well. My mother said, "That's great, sweetheart." My father said, "Just make sure you have health insurance." Grant said he'd been invited to the pharmaceutical industry gala in Atlanta. Black tie, he said. My mother beamed. Year 4. I moved into a bigger kitchen, hired a pastry chef, 2 more line cooks, and a full-time event coordinator named Jess, who handled client communication so I could focus on menus and execution. Revenue crossed $900,000. I bought a small brick house in East Nashville, 1,200 square feet, needed new floors and a kitchen gut. I renovated it myself over 5 months with Rosa's husband Carlos, who did tile work on weekends. I spent $196,000 on the house. It appraised at $270,000 when I finished. My parents visited once. My mother said, "It's charming, honey. Cozy." My father opened the oven. Wolf range. Those aren't cheap. I know, I said. That was the most interest he'd ever shown in anything I owned. Year 5. This year, 2025. Moran and Company was projected to bring in $1.9 million. 23 employees. 3 catering vans. All white, all with the logo now. Elegant. A simple M and C in dark green with a sprig of rosemary. We'd catered 147 events. Average contract value $12,800. Our biggest contract to date was $68,000, a 3-day wedding weekend at Cheekwood Estate for a family from Atlanta. The bride's mother told me afterward, with tears in her eyes, that the food was the only thing her daughter specifically mentioned in her thank you speech. That got us noticed. That got us on the Nashville Hospitality Association's radar. And in August, I got an email saying I'd been nominated for Caterer of the Year, under 35. I read it 4 times. I told Rosa. She cried. I told Jess. She screamed. I didn't tell my parents. In May, I'd gotten an email from an event coordinator named Audrey Harwell. She worked for a luxury planning firm called Sterling and Grace. She was putting together a charity dinner for the Vanderbilt Children's Hospital Foundation and needed a caterer who could handle 180 guests at the Parthenon event space. She'd seen our work at Cheekwood. Her email was professional, warm, specific. She knew exactly what she wanted. Farm-to-table Southern, elevated but not pretentious, allergy-conscious, a dessert station, not a plated dessert, because she wanted people to mingle. I liked her immediately. We met at my kitchen in June. She walked in wearing a cream blazer and ballet flats, carrying a leather planner the size of a textbook. She was 27, precise, sharp, the kind of person who noticed when a napkin fold was a 1/4 inch off. She walked through my kitchen, tasted 3 sample dishes, asked detailed questions about sourcing and plating, and whether we could accommodate a raw bar alongside the main stations. "This is exactly what I've been looking for," she said, standing by the pass, watching Rosa plate a test run of seared duck breast with blackberry gastrique. "I've worked with 6 caterers in Nashville. You're the first one who made me stop thinking about logistics and start thinking about the food." "Good," I said. "That's the whole point." We signed a $22,000 contract. She communicated with Jess for logistics and with me directly for menu development. In her emails, she addressed me as Leah or Elle. Morin, owner. On site, I wore my chef's coat. My hair pulled back. Clogs that were permanently stained with whatever sauce I'd been testing that week. I ran the kitchen. I directed the team. She probably assumed I was the head chef who also happened to own the business, which was true, but she didn't grasp the scale. She saw a woman in a kitchen. She didn't see the woman who signed the paychecks for 23 people. She didn't ask. I didn't correct her. In July, during a tasting for the charity dinner menu, Audrey mentioned she'd started seeing someone. "That's great," I said, not really listening. I was adjusting the seasoning on a butternut squash bisque. "He's in pharma," she said. "Works for a company in Franklin. Travels a lot, but when he's home, he's really present." "That's nice," I said. I tasted the bisque. More nutmeg. She didn't say his name. Professional boundaries. It wasn't my business. And I didn't know, not then, that she was talking about Grant. I didn't know that when Grant described me to Audrey, he said my sister works in kitchens. I didn't know he called me the family disappointment when he'd had 2 beers. I didn't know that Audrey, when she heard works in kitchens, pictured someone on a line, sweating over a flat-top grill, not someone running a company that had catered events for her own family's foundation. They never asked, so they never knew, and the silence was about to collapse in the most public way possible. The charity dinner went flawlessly. September 14th. The Parthenon glowed under string lights. 180 guests in cocktail attire eating food. My team and I had spent 3 weeks perfecting. Audrey was radiant, managing the event like a conductor. At the end of the night, the foundation director stood at the podium and thanked Morin and company by name. The room applauded. Audrey caught my eye across the room and mouthed, "Perfect." I smiled, went back to the kitchen, broke down the stations, drove the van home at midnight, smelling like smoke and caramelized onions, exhausted and proud. 2 weeks later, my mother called to uninvite me from my father's birthday, October 5th. My father's 60th birthday. I woke at 5, same as always. Made coffee in my pour-over, black, no sugar. Stood at the kitchen window watching the sky lighten over East Nashville. The trees were just starting to turn, the maples along my street dropping the first yellow leaves onto the sidewalk. 62 degrees. Clear. It was my father's birthday, and I had nowhere to be. I thought about calling a friend. I thought about going to a restaurant alone, sitting at the bar, ordering a glass of wine, and pretending it was just another Saturday. Instead, I drove to the kitchen. Our commercial kitchen on Dickerson Pike, the one I'd leased 5 years ago when it was just me and a dream and a van with no logo. I unlocked the door at 6. The kitchen was dark, cold, stainless steel surfaces gleaming under the emergency lights. I turned on the overhead fluorescents, started prepping for Monday's event. A corporate lunch, nothing fancy, 60 people, roasted chicken with herb jus, seasonal vegetables, a lemon tart for dessert. I broke down 2 cases of chicken, trimmed, seasoned, portioned. My hands moved on autopilot. Knife work is meditation for me. The rhythm of it, the precision, the way the blade meets the board in that satisfying thock, it quiets everything else. I worked until 2 in the afternoon. Then I sat on the loading dock behind the kitchen, legs dangling, eating a sandwich I'd made from leftover focaccia and prosciutto, watching trucks pass on Dickerson Pike. My phone buzzed, a text from Grant. "Happy birthday to Dad. Hope you're having a good day. Not wish you were here. Not I'm sorry." Just a text that pretended nothing had happened. I didn't reply. I finished my sandwich, went back inside, cleaned the kitchen until it gleamed, drove home at 4. My neighborhood was alive with weekend noise, kids on bikes, someone grilling on a porch, music drifting from an open window. I went inside, showered, put on sweats, sat on the couch with my laptop, reviewed the budget for the next quarter, updated the client proposal for a December wedding, answered emails. At 9, I closed the laptop and went to bed. I didn't feel sorry for myself. For the first time in years, I wasn't performing. I wasn't sitting at a table pretending it didn't hurt when they asked Grant about his sales trip to Cabo and asked me, "How's the catering, honey?" I was free. And in 2 weeks, they'd see why. The Nashville Hospitality Association's annual gala took place on Saturday, October 19th, at the Omni Hotel downtown. I arrived at 6. The parking garage was filling up. I recognized vehicles from other catering companies, restaurant groups, hotel chains. I parked my truck, a white Ford F-150 I used for site visits, not the van, and sat there for a moment, engine running, heat on even though it was 58 degrees, because my hands were cold and I needed a minute. I was wearing a black dress I'd bought at a boutique on 12th South 3 days ago. Simple, fitted, no jewelry except my grandmother's gold studs. My hair was down, blown out, falling past my shoulders. I looked at myself in the rearview mirror and didn't recognize the woman looking back. Not the woman in the stained chef's coat with flour on her cheek and a burn on her wrist. I looked like someone my mother would be proud to explain. I hated that I thought that. I turned off the engine, grabbed my clutch, walked into the hotel. The ballroom was enormous. Round tables, white linens, centerpieces of autumn flowers, dahlias and eucalyptus and deep red roses. A stage at the front with a podium, and a screen showing the NHA logo. I found my table, table 9, the nominees' table. 5 other people already seated, all caterers or restaurateurs I'd met at industry events over the years. We exchanged greetings. Someone made a joke about whether the hotel's own catering team felt weird serving food to their competitors. Everyone laughed. I sat down, opened the program. Caterer of the Year, under 35. Page 3. 3 nominees. My name was one of them. I'd known for 2 months. I'd told Rosa and Jess and no one else. Not my parents, not Grant, not anyone who would have dismissed it with a, "That's nice, honey," Rosa had cried when I told her. Jess had screamed, and then immediately started planning what I should wear. Now, sitting here, in a room of 350 people, I felt the weight of it settle on my shoulders like a coat. This was real. I was here. I scanned the room. Suppliers, hotel managers, restaurant owners, city council members, corporate sponsors in suits. Then I saw them. Table 27, near the back, but with a clear view of the stage. Grant, my mother, my father, and Audrey. My breath caught. Grant was in a charcoal suit. My mother was wearing a navy dress I'd never seen. My father looked stiff in a blazer, the way he always did when my mother made him dress up, and Audrey. Audrey was in an emerald green dress, hair in a low chignon, laughing at something Grant was saying. They were here. Of course they were. Grant's pharmaceutical company was a gala sponsor. He must have gotten a table. Brought Audrey, brought my parents. Showing off his connections, his professional world, the life he wanted the Harwell's daughter to admire. They had no idea I was in the room. I turned back to my table. My heart was hammering. This was about to get very complicated. Dinner was served at 7. Seared salmon, roasted potatoes, asparagus, better than the usual rubber chicken, but I couldn't taste any of it. I was watching table 27. My mother touched Audrey's hand, the way she does when she's charming someone. My father was nodding along, smiling more than I'd seen him smile in months. Grant looked proud, chest out, arm around the back of Audrey's chair. This was the version of our family he wanted to present. Successful, polished, complete, without me. At 7:30, the MC took the stage. A man in his 60s, president of the NHA, silver hair, deep voice. "Good evening, Nashville," he said, and the room quieted. "Welcome to the 38th Annual Nashville Hospitality Awards. Tonight, we celebrate the people who make this city one of the greatest food and hospitality destinations in America." Applause. He went through the sponsors. Grant's company got a mention. I watched Grant sit up straighter, lean over to whisper something to Audrey. She smiled. Then the MC said, "Let's begin with one of our most exciting categories. Caterer of the Year. Under 35. My hands went ice cold under the table. At table 27, Audrey straightened. She was an event planner. This was her industry. This category mattered to her. This award recognizes a caterer who has demonstrated exceptional growth, culinary excellence, and client satisfaction, all before the age of 35. This year's nominees represent the future of Nashville hospitality. A slide appeared on the screen. 3 names. Derek Sullivan, Sullivan Events, Leah Moran, Moran and Company, Priya Kapoor, Kapoor Kitchen & Co., my name. 40 feet from my family. I watched it happen in slow motion. Audrey saw the screen first. Her body went rigid. She leaned forward, squinting, like she needed to make sure she was reading it right. Then she grabbed the program, flipped to page 3, and read. I knew what it said because I'd memorized it. Leah Moran, founder and executive chef of Moran and Company, has catered 147 events in 5 years with a 4.9 star average client rating. Her company employs 23 full-time staff and is projected to reach $1.9 million in revenue this year. Moran is celebrated for her farm-to-table Southern cuisine and her commitment to locally sourced ingredients. Audrey's hand went to her mouth. She turned to Grant. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her point at the screen. I saw Grant's face cycle from confusion to recognition to something that looked like he'd swallowed glass. He followed her finger. Saw my name. Went white. My mother noticed. What's wrong? I could read her lips from across the room. Audrey pointed at the screen again. My mother looked. Found my name. Her hand flew to her pearls. My father followed their gaze, squinted at the screen, and then sat very still. At table 9, I didn't move. The MC was still talking. The selection criteria include revenue growth, culinary innovation, and demonstrated impact on Nashville's hospitality community. This year's winner has exceeded every benchmark. He paused, smiled, opened the envelope. This year's Caterer of the Year, under 35, is Leah Moran, Moran and Company. The room erupted. A spotlight found me. I stood. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else, but I stood. My table erupted. Handshakes, applause, someone squeezing my shoulder. I saw Rosa in the back of the room. She'd come as my guest, standing, clapping, tears streaming down her face. I walked to the stage, 20 steps, maybe 30, the longest walk of my life. I passed within sight of table 27. I let myself glance. Just once. My mother's wine glass was suspended in the air, frozen between the table and her lips. My father's face was blank, processing. Grant looked like someone had punched him in the chest. And Audrey was staring at Grant, not at me, watching him, watching the lie unravel in real time. I climbed the stairs. The MC handed me the award. A crystal flame mounted on a dark wood base, heavy, real. He shook my hand, stepped aside. The microphone waited. 350 people looked at me. I took a breath. Thank you, I said, and my voice was steady. 6 years ago, I signed a lease on a kitchen I couldn't really afford, bought a van with no logo, and told anyone who would listen that I was going to build something worth tasting. Most people smiled politely and moved on. I paused. This company started with me and a cutting board. Today, it's 23 people who show up before dawn and stay past midnight because they believe that food isn't just fuel, it's how we take care of each other. Another pause. To everyone who tasted what we were building before it was finished, thank you. I let that line land. I wasn't looking at my family, but I felt them hear it. I stepped back. Applause. Louder this time. The MC returned. I walked off the stage, sat down, and someone put a glass of champagne in my hand. My phone buzzed face down on the table. I turned it over. A text from my mother. We need to talk. I put the phone down. The awards ended at 8:30. People milled around with drinks. I was talking to a sommelier I'd worked with on the Cheekwood wedding when I saw my mother approaching. Fast. My father behind her, looking like a man walking into a room he wasn't sure he was allowed to enter. Leah, my mother said. We had no idea. The sommelier glanced between us. I'll catch up with you, Leah. Congratulations again. He left. My mother stood in front of me, clutching her small navy purse like it was the only thing keeping her upright. We had no idea, she said again. That's correct, I said. My father stepped forward. Leah, why didn't you tell us? I looked at him, 60 years old today. The man who'd sat in his recliner every Sunday for 11 years asking Grant about pharmaceutical sales and asking me how's the catering like it was a hobby I'd eventually outgrow. I did tell you, I said quietly. 6 years ago. I told you I started a company. You said be careful, and asked Grant about his car insurance. My mother's face flushed. But this is a real business, Leah. What did you think I did? I asked. Make sandwiches in my apartment? Silence, the kind that has weight. My father opened his mouth, closed it. My mother's mascara was smudging at the corners of her eyes. Excuse me, I said. I need to thank my team. I walked past them, made it 6 steps before I heard Grant's voice. Leah, stop. He caught up to me near the bar, grabbed my arm. I stopped, turned. Don't touch me, I said quietly. He let go, held up both hands. I didn't know it was this big, he said. You never asked, I said. You never told me. I did. I told you and Mom and Dad at every Sunday dinner for 3 years. You just didn't listen. Because every time I tried to talk about a client or a contract or a new hire, Mom changed the subject to your quarterly numbers and everyone moved on. He looked away, ran a hand through his hair. His jaw was clenched. Audrey won't even look at me, he said. That's not my problem, Grant. You uninvited me from Dad's birthday, I said, because I embarrass you. Me, the cook. The cook whose company made more last year than you'll make in a decade. He flinched. Leah, come on. We're done, I said. I walked away. He said my name once more. I didn't turn around. I was at the bar ordering water when Audrey found me. Leah. I turned. She was standing there, hands clasped, looking like she was trying very hard not to cry. Can we talk? She said. I glanced past her. Grant was back at the table with my parents. All 3 of them looked shattered. Sure, I said. We walked to a quiet corner of the lobby, near the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Broadway. The neon signs glowed pink and blue in the distance. I'm so sorry, Audrey said. For what? For not putting it together. Moran and Company. Leah Moran. Grant Moran. I should have you didn't know, I said. I should have asked. I was on site with you. I watched you run a kitchen. I watched you manage 20 people without raising your voice. I should have realized that my fiancé's sister wasn't just some line cook. She shook her head. God, I feel like an idiot. You're not the first person to underestimate a woman in a chef's coat, I said. She looked at me. He lied to me. He told me you were the family embarrassment, that you'd never amounted to anything, that you resented him for being more successful. I didn't react. I kept my face still. But something inside me cracked along a line that had been forming for 11 years. She continued. When I heard works in kitchens, I pictured someone, I don't know, someone flipping burgers. Not someone whose food I served to 180 guests at a charity dinner and got a standing ovation. She reached into her clutch and pulled out a business card. Her own, Audrey Harwell, Sterling and Grace Events. She handed it to me. I have 3 events next year that need a caterer, she said. Call me when you're ready. Professional only. I took the card. Thank you, I said. She nodded. You deserved this 6 years ago. I'm sorry it took the rest of us this long to see it. She walked away. I stood there, holding her card, watching the neon glow of Broadway through the glass. My mother caught me in the lobby on my way out. Leah, please. I stopped. She was standing there with my father, both of them looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. Can we take you to dinner? She asked. To celebrate? Your father's birthday and your award. We could, I looked at her. Really looked. She was 57. She'd worked as an office manager at a dental practice for 22 years. She'd never been promoted. She'd watched younger people with degrees get handed opportunities she'd earned 3 times over. She'd pushed Grant and me toward careers that looked successful from the outside because she thought appearance was protection. She'd wanted us to have an easier life, and in wanting that, she'd missed the life I'd actually built. No, I said, but thank you for asking. Her face crumbled. My father reached for her hand. I looked at both of them. 11 years of Sunday dinners. 11 years of being invisible at my own family's table. And now here, In the lobby of the Omni Hotel, they finally saw me. But it wasn't enough for tonight. I need to go, I said. I walked out into the October night, 54 degrees. I could see my breath. I walked to my truck, got in, set the crystal award on the passenger seat where my chef's coat usually sat. Started the engine. The dashboard glowed. The heater hummed. I sat there for a minute, hands on the wheel, looking at the award. Caterer of the Year, under 35. Leah Moran. They spent 6 years not seeing me. Tonight, I made sure they couldn't look away. The email from my father came 4 days later, Wednesday morning, 5:47 a.m. Subject line: I'm sorry, Leah. I've been trying to write this since Saturday night. I don't know how to say it, so I'll just say it. We failed you. I sat at that table on Saturday and watched my daughter's name on a screen in front of 350 people, and I realized I don't know who you are. I don't know what you've built. I don't know what you've accomplished. And that's my fault. I asked Grant about his sales numbers every Sunday because I understood sales. I didn't understand what you were doing because I never tried to.